Okay, I'm rolling.
As part of a combined law enforcement effort, the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office is announcing first-degree charges against Ronnie Earl Ricks for the possession of over a ton, literally, of marijuana in Montgomery County. The first-degree charges carry a 5 to 99 years or life sentence here in Montgomery County. Precinct 4 Constable Rowdy Hayden will be conducting the preliminary investigation, the follow-through. We're hoping at the resolution that we'll have a successful prosecution in this case. What we've discovered through some of the investigation is that the truck was loaded down near the border, and as part of the delivery, the truck went through a checkpoint, and so we're in contact with the officials at the checkpoint as well as the initial loading point. So our investigation will center on that primary loading area, and then of course the routes of travel from there to the ultimate destination. We'll anticipate bringing several people before the grand jury, including the people that Mr. Ricks knows the best. So our investigation in this case is continuing, and Precinct 4 Constable Hayden, as well as his troops, will be doing the follow-up investigation for us.
Any idea where you say the border? Where border we talking about?
One of the border cities. We've got a produce delivery area. We're not wanting to go into details at this point until we're able to nail some more of them down, but we will be headed down to the border next week.
What about destination?
Destination turns out to be a place in New Jersey, and so it appears as if the produce load was a legitimate produce load. We've already spoken with the owner of the produce itself, and we anticipate making a transition from us to them sometime this afternoon. And so for the people that were concerned about perhaps the wasting of the produce, it should be loaded and headed back towards its original destination later today.
So we've gone basically from value of $2.5 million to about $7.5 million now.
The value of the narcotics obviously will still depend on what the quality of the marijuana is. When you just look at the street value alone, the numbers have ranged quite a bit, like anything else. In bulk, you can buy it cheaper, no different than if you were at Sam's or at Walmart. But when it's broken down on the streets, which is what our concern is, the value of it gets higher. The message that we need to stay on point is, and the same one that Constable Hayden continues to point out, is not only was there a destination for this, it was going to be broken down into smaller amounts, would have gotten out there into the streets, and would have gotten into everybody's community.
What about what I'm getting at is going up to New Jersey? You think the load was going to New Jersey also, the marijuana was?
Don't know. Don't know that yet. It's too early in the investigation to determine.
Almost 3 times the price of marijuana up there.
Yeah, it's evidently prices are higher north of the Mason-Dixon.
Okay. What about, Rowdy, what about you? These guys out there last night, I mean, you had pretty good luck on the freeways getting these drugs off the road, and this is probably one of the biggest ones in quite a while.
Well, as Brett said, this is a combined effort between several different law enforcement agencies, as well as the District Attorney's Office here today. Our guys have been very successful on the freeway. You know, and to talk about the local impact of a large amount of marijuana like this, once this marijuana reaches its destination, from that point it's going to be broken down, bundled into smaller packages, and redistributed throughout the neighborhood. So we're happy to be able to stop it while it's en route to that location.
Brett, what about, you're saying you're going to the grand jury with this now. How long before it'll be brought before the grand jury?
Fairly quickly. We've got a pretty good system in Montgomery County. We have 2 grand juries that sit at any one time, every Tuesday and every Thursday. We've got the suspect in custody, so we obviously the probable cause was there. We've got the tractor trailer full of dope, full of produce. And so now what we want to do is make sure that we finish up the investigation, but we could have it to the grand jury in less than a month.
Now, you think his driver knowingly had that load, or do you think he was just hauling for someone?
No, I believe that the driver knew.
How do you ever get some of these? I mean, the trucks where the drivers, you know, they just back into a dock, pick a trailer up, and say, "Hey, you got to take it to point Z," and no idea what's on the load. What happens on something like that?
Well, it'd be inconsistent with the way that the business is being conducted in regards to speaking with truck drivers, in regards to people at the dock and those types of deals. When a person takes possession of a load, they're signing for the load, and there's supposed to be an inspection of the load. Of course, you've got driver's logs that indicate the amount of mileage. So we've got driver's logs that we're looking at. We've got statements from the not only the people who bought the produce, but from actually the forklift driver who loaded it onto the truck. So any investigation would not be complete until you speak with the people from the point of origination until the destination point. And so we're fairly confident at this point that the driver was aware of what he was transporting.
Okay. And now charges, you basically bring the charges against him after grand jury. You just have
Right.
one charge right now. What kind of bond is he on right now?
$250,000 bond.
Okay. What about, back to the deal, any chance it came through the Port of Houston?
I don't believe so. It appears as if his route of travel is from one of the border cities, which are the ones that we know, and the route of travel seems to be directly north, going through Falfurrias, Texas.
Okay. Ronnie, can you give me kind of a rundown last night, how the whole thing came down? I mean, was it just a walk up on it, or kind of run that down to me?
Oh, officers came in contact with the 18-wheeler on Highway 59. The 18-wheeler was parked in the moving lane of traffic. From that point on, they made contact with the driver. From looking at his logbooks, his storage just was not consistent, which later on revealed the marijuana in the vehicle.
All right. Anything else, either one of you?
Yeah, I just need to go back to basics a little bit more. Where exactly did this happen and about what time?
This happened in the 23,000 block of East Tex Freeway, northbound, in the Kingwood area.
And this is near North Park Drive?
Yes.
Okay. And you said he was parked in a moving lane of traffic?
The vehicle appeared to be disabled, and he couldn't quite get it off the roadway.
That's kind of strange. Another truck 2 weeks ago, same thing. Broke
Well-
down, sticking out, moving lane of traffic, same with a load.
Unfortunately, it's not that unique of an occurrence. There was one here in Montgomery County approximately 2 weeks ago that was found disabled with 300 pounds of marijuana. So here you've got another one disabled once again with literally a ton of marijuana. And then we had one in Liberty County, which touches on the northeast border of Montgomery County, which was coming back from whatever its destination was. And instead of a truckload of drugs, it was a truckload of money. So it's the summer. The transportation industry obviously should bear some responsibility for the massive amount of narcotics that travel through Montgomery County. Montgomery County has two main veins that go through it, 45 and 59. And until you're able to shut off that point, which it's almost impossible to do, you're still going to have just massive amounts of drugs being transported through this county. As the constables pointed out, this one, it appears as if its ultimate destination was in New Jersey. It's still somebody's neighborhood. There's still kids there. There's still families there. At the end of the day, if they broke down in Montgomery County, it's just their tough luck.
Do you believe the amount of drug trafficking through Montgomery County is increasing, or is the interdiction just more successful lately?
I don't know in regards to whether or not the amount that's gone through. The cases that we file have stayed consistent within the last several years. We're right at approximately 5,000 felony cases, around 11,000 misdemeanor cases, and those numbers have held steadily for the years. And the percentage of those which are dope cases have also stayed about the same. So in regards to whether or not there's more, I don't necessarily know that there's more, but there's certainly plenty of attention to it. Anytime you've got a profit motive, which are drugs, you're going to have a risk element. And so when the profit motive and the risk element meet, what you have is massive amounts of transportation going on. And so like any business, there's going to be losses. And I believe that the cartels down south realize that this is part of doing business. And so whether it's a truckload today or a truckload tomorrow, as long as there's people out there that are willing to buy the poison, as long as there's people that are willing to continue to put money into the drug cartel's pocket, then you're going to have people that are continuing to take the risk in transporting it.
How do you address, you get a lot of people who come back with this, well, just legalize it, don't worry about it.
In regards to the legalization issue, there's an old quote that says, you may feel free to dislike the law, but you're not free to disobey the law. And so my job is not to get off into the moralistic implications of whether or not somebody believes that certain amounts of marijuana are good for them, or large amounts or what have you. My job and Mr. Hayden's job is to enforce the laws of the state of Texas, as we're both sworn to do. And the law in this great state is if you transport this kind of dope, you're looking at a life sentence. And that's exactly what we'd like to give you.
What about priors? Any priors on him?
He does have a prior criminal history, but at this time I don't want to go into that.
About anything else?
And I'm sorry, maybe I missed it, but did you say where he was from?
He's from the Pasadena area.
Pasadena, Texas?
Mhm.
Now, was that his truck, or was he just driving?
He's transporting it for another, there's a trucking company that we've been in contact with as well. And so that's part of the follow-up investigation.
Are they from up here or down the valley?
They're not from Montgomery County area.
You said the number of the cases have stayed consistent. It seems like the large quantities have increased lately, or are they just more high profile lately, or have they just not been brought to the public's attention so much?
Yeah, you know, I think the large quantities has always been there. It's just it's hard to detect them. In this incident here, you know, the guy had 2,500 pounds of marijuana concealed in a load of fruit. Well, your average patrolman is not going to take the initiative to go forth and find that narcotic.
And to follow that up, Jamie, most of Montgomery County follows a community-oriented planning, community-oriented policing type of a strategy, which means that most of the officers that are responsive to calls go to 911 calls. And so what you have is a law enforcement umbrella within the county that is almost purely reactionary. And so when they get calls for service, when they get 911 calls, they're constantly within the neighborhoods because people want a very quick response time. And so what happens is you get a nice presence in the neighborhoods, which makes people feel safe, but you get a diminished presence on the freeways. And so, for example, right now the primary agency within this entire county working 45 and 59 is Texas Department of Public Safety, not the law enforcement agencies that are housed within the county. And so the county is very similar to many other counties. It's the most citizens say they want somebody there in their neighborhood. And so as long as you have 45 and 59 and it has just a dearth of or a lack of law enforcement on it, when you're talking about the volume of traffic that you can get on a square mile within a minute of a period of time on 45 and on 59, like I said, when the risk seems somewhat low and the profit margin or the profit motive seems somewhat high, then people are going to take that risk all day, every day. And remember, this case is where a vehicle was broken down. And so I embrace the model of community-oriented policing. And it's great for neighborhoods, it's great for response time, and it's also good to let people know that their law enforcement is out there and it maintains a high visibility. On the other hand, because this county is unique in the sense that 45 and 59 both go through it, the fact that the state is providing the primary law enforcement on those two freeways, I think is just, it's not the cause of it, but it is a reflection of the few interdictions that you get. I agree with Constable Hayden. I think that the amounts going through have always been consistent, but you do have more aggressive interdiction going on recently, perhaps than what you've had in the past, particularly on the freeways.
And this arrest is a great example of proactive policing.
Absolutely.
The officers were on the streets, proactive. They stopped this crime before it reached its destination.
Yeah, this was an officer who broke down and did old-fashioned policing. He stopped, he talked to the driver. He did a follow-up with the driver, continued to push the driver a little bit in regards to whether or not his story was making sense. And ultimately it led to the discovery of 2,400 pounds of marijuana. So going back to old-fashioned policing, it's having enough feet on the street. In this case, you know, it was Montgomery County's fortune to be able to stop this load of poison from headed north. There's got to be a quote in there somewhere. Go back to the office. Any other questions for me? Or for Ratty?
Would you mind spelling his name for me?
Are we going to